welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Juggling Life Finding Balance podcast. I am your host, Vivian Cummins. And before we get started with today's episode, remember to like, subscribe, and share to this podcast. And make sure that you leave a comment and let us know how it has inspired you. You guys, today I have one of my sweet friends with me, and Trina and I met about little over 4 years ago at church when I moved here to the Sonoma County area. And she was one of the first women in church to befriend me, and I just love her to pieces. So, welcome to the show, Trina. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Vivian. I
Of
appreciate it.
course. Of course. So, folks, I invited her to come on today because of an episode that aired in May. And for those of you who may not know, I also am a co host to Salted on Abundant Television. And it is a panel of Christian women, and we talk about issues that are affecting women today. And one of the topics for the month of May was women and marijuana use. And after that aired, Trina sent me a beautiful email expressing how much she appreciated that conversation. And she shared with me some of her testimony. And so we've been talking offline, and she has agreed to come on today and tell us her testimony of how God has delivered her from that and how she is fully restored today. And so, Trina, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful testimony. But before we get into all of that, I would love for you to introduce our audience to yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yes, like she said, my name is Trina. I'm actually born and raised in Sonoma County. Lived here. I have no intention of moving. I have two beautiful children and a blended family with two more children. Let's see, coming next May, I will be married 20 years, which is so exciting.
Oh,
And
congratulations. Yes.
I've actually been a Christian, been saved for a lot of years, but walking with the Lord only in the last 10 years. So the
Ooh,
journey
that's
has definitely
interesting.
been, yeah, the journey um, has been very exciting, frustrating at times, of course. The enemy loves to come in and attack when things are getting good.
Mm-hmm.
And then really that's, not only in the bad times, but in the good times is when we really need to lean on the Lord. So I'm so
Mm-hmm.
grateful that I have God in my life because things were out of control before him,
Yeah.
for sure.
You said something there that kind of, I was like, oh, let's go back and talk about that for a second. You said you were saved a while ago, but you've been walking with the Lord the last 10 years. Can you explain that a little bit to us?
Well, honestly, I've known God my whole life. I had a
Mm-hmm.
neighbor, next door neighbor, who used to take me to church when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I went because I got out of my chaos of my home and I got cookies and candy. So, of course,
Oh.
that was great. They moved when I was 12. And so I didn't really have access to church, or, that wasn't something that was happening in my family.
Yeah.
Um, and so I didn't reconnect in church again till my 30s.
Okay.
And at that point, I was in my first marriage, smoking a lot of marijuana,
Mm-hmm.
and I was called a hypocrite because how can
Mm-hmm.
I go to church and then come home and smoke marijuana? So I didn't go. I stopped going because I allowed my marriage to sort of rule who I was
Yeah.
instead of really understanding what God wanted for me. And so, yeah, about 10 years ago, no, George and I have been together for 22 years. So 22 years ago, we started going to church together, my new husband. Um, and again, it was sort of just the Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
We go on Sundays.
Yep.
And yep, yep. And then about 10 years ago, we had a family invite us to their church. We really got connected. And God really just started opening doors for me and letting me see. He started talking to me, or I started hearing him
Okay.
talk to me. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so when you really listen and hear what he's saying, um, it's huge. It makes a big
Mhm.
difference in your life.
Mhm.
I hope that makes
You know
sense.
what? I think so many people can relate to that because I too, I was saved when I was 12. And, I tried to live. I mean, my family went to church and everything. I was trying to live my life as a Christian, but going through high school and getting, drinking and partying and all those things. And I too was married before I met my husband. Well, I've known my husband forever, Eddie, but my first marriage, it was one of those things, if you can't beat them, join them type things. And so I drank a lot. I partied a lot, and
Yep.
knew it was wrong every time I did it, and didn't know how to stop doing it because it was like, well, this is what he does. And so if I want to be a part of his life, then I have to do these
Mhm.
things if I'm going to stay married. And so I understand now that you've kind of shared that. I feel like about 7 years ago, I rededicated my life as well, or excuse me, 6 years ago, when I had my breakdown and I was like, I'm done. I'm done with all the things that I've been doing and I want to start living and kingdom building. And so I think it's important that people know that you can be saved, you can be
Mhm.
a believer, and sometimes still not be in the will of God. But that doesn't mean that you're not saved, you're not going to go to heaven. It just means you're not living in the will of God. Um,
Right.
so I want to talk a little bit. You said your first marriage, first husband,
Mhm.
smoking a lot of marijuana. So tell us a little bit how that all came to be. How did you first get introduced to it?
Right. I met my first husband at 15,
Okay.
and that was just normal for him and his family. They lived across the street. So it just sort of was peer pressure, I guess you could
Mm,
say.
mm-hmm,
But then once I kind of got started, I realized it quieted, it
mm-hmm.
calmed the
Sure.
thoughts,
Sure.
because I was constantly worrying and again, I wasn't walking with the Lord.
Mm,
So those thoughts just get overwhelming and overwhelming. And I
mm-hmm.
noticed that when I did smoke, the thoughts would be quiet.
Oh, okay.
Right. But what ended up happening is through that marriage, which was not healthy, it was
Mm,
emotionally abusive,
mm,
never physical, but emotionally abusive.
mm-hmm.
And at 15, what do you know? I didn't
Yeah.
know anything. We got married at 19. I had my
Okay.
first two kids or my kids at 25 and 26. Um, and, I call it the new word narcissist. You
Mm,
know, it's not that it's a new word, it's always existed, but
mm-hmm.
it's really prevalent. And once now I feel like, oh, that really explains so
Mm,
much. But I went to counseling um, back then, and I had a counselor tell me that I was allowing him to control me, which really made me angry because,
yeah,
again,
I get it.
I was never taught boundaries or sticking
Mm-hmm.
up for myself, or, you know, it was be a good wife
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it was just something natural, something we did all the time. Um, and I just allowed it to consume my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
So you started at 15?
at 15,
Okay.
ah,
And then, I know. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're a baby.
yeah.
15, you were a baby. Okay. So how did that, you said you had two kids. How did
Hmm.
that, uh, I'm assuming both you and he were using during that time. So how did that affect how you were raising your children?
Well, the kids actually were a motivation to originally quit. So I
Okay.
did quit for 3 or 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
while when my kids were toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it was just, oh, it's no harm, no foul, let's just continue, it's not a big deal, it's
Yeah.
just pot,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just sort of picked it up again. And then when I chose to get a divorce, because I was not living, my sister introduced me as, this is my sister, she lived in a box, because I had no friends, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
go anywhere. My marriage consumed me. And
Yeah.
so, I finally hit, I mean, there were some other things that helped make that decision, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
um, once I had left and I was alone with the kids, they knew how to manipulate me. And again, I
Mm,
was still in that same allowing someone to manipulate me and push my buttons.
yeah,
I didn't have a backbone. I didn't know how to really to stand up to them and be their parent and not their friend.
sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they would go off to their dads and I would be home alone, sad, not realizing it was depression.
Yeah,
Um, and so I'd smoke because I was sad. And I was
yeah.
just overthinking the kids are, with their dad and I'm home alone and I have nobody and,
Mm-hmm.
what am I going to do? And, by 30 years old, if you don't have friends, it's kind of hard to make friends as
Sure.
an adult,
Yeah.
So yeah, I just became, a recluse. I just
Mm-hmm.
stayed in the house a lot,
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
So you are born and raised in California, and
Mhm.
but I'm wondering, does the environment did that kind of push you into that as well? Because everywhere I go, everybody's doing it, whether it's medicinal or recreational. Everybody's doing it. So I guess that's my question. Not so much the legality of it, but was it readily available, and is that just what people were doing?
You had to have your connections. It literally, and I
Yeah,
can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, you had to make a drug deal.
sure.
You had to have a contact, then you had to set up timing. You had to have cash. Um, you
Hmm.
kind of do the slip of the hand depending on where you're at. If you're, going to a house or meeting at the park, I don't, whatever the situation is. But right now, it's on every street corner.
Hmm.
There, you don't need a license. You don't, you can just walk in the. It's like walking into 7-Eleven
Hmm.
and get what you want, get your merchandise, and off you go.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so it's
Knowing
it's
what you
definitely.
know with what you've gone through and how it's affected your life, what are your thoughts on that it's so readily accessible to people now?
I think it'll be tougher to quit the addiction,
Mm.
you know, because you don't have to jump through hoops or do anything special to get it. You
Yeah.
know, I kind of laugh now because, of course, now that I'm sober,
Hmm.
they're everywhere. It's everywhere on
Hmm.
every corner, and you don't need the medical marijuana license.
Yeah.
Um, so I just sort of laugh because I literally turn the corner to come home, and I'm like, "That's funny. That's
Yeah.
so funny." Um,
Yeah, and uh, for me, I'm not from California, and so that has been something so different for me to
mhm.
experience. The only time that I've ever been around any of that was when I lived overseas, and then it was kind of all over the place when I was overseas, and so that's something that has just kind of been on the forefront of my mind is why are so many people doing? You can't even go like to Safeway and without walking past people who are smoking marijuana. So well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that with us. So I want to kind of push forward a little bit about what are you thinking? I mean, you're saying that I was depressed, and so I used it to kind of help with feeling sad. Where was
Mhm.
your relationship with God at that point?
It was not a priority.
Mm,
So this was all prior to starting to really dedicate my time, focus in the Word, go to church
mhm,
every Sunday. Um, he didn't exist. Let's say
mm,
he was
okay.
not a part of my life up until quite a few years ago, and that's really when I started seeing, you know, verses in the Bible about being sober, be of sober
Mm,
mind. Your
mhm,
body's a temple. And there were times where I would just go, okay, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
it really I kept being convicted. And it was
So
true. How
he
can I?
wasn't a top priority. You're at home, you're doing this. What was the one thing? So you say that you kept seeing verses. How were those verses being introduced to you? What was the one thing that got you to start looking up towards God?
Well, I was still smoking when I started really connecting.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it was a way to numb myself.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't ready to do the work.
Okay.
Um, yes, God is the one that walked me through it. God is the one that kept tapping me on the shoulder. Of course, God's on one side, the enemy's on the other,
Mm-hmm.
basically. But
Yeah.
and to be honest, my husband didn't like it.
Mm.
But I had been doing it for so long, and I think that's where a lot of people, oh, I've been doing this for so long, it doesn't make a
Yeah.
difference, it's only pot, you know.
Yeah.
But it messes with your mind, and you're truly not thinking clearly,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not looking to God when you're doing that.
Yeah.
I know in your show with Salted, you had mentioned about Christian women smoking. And I
Mm-hmm.
know some Christian women smoking, and I don't condemn them. I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to lecture them. It's not for me to say anything. The only thing I could do is tell them about my testimony and how it is possible to get clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You
Yeah.
talked about, you said earlier in the introduction where you were talking about you felt like a hypocrite. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, again, being in the Word and hearing God speak to you, telling you, stop doing that. And I would ignore him because
Mm-hmm.
it was my thing, and now it's legal, so right, so and it
Right.
came, what do people say, it's a plant, and God
Mm-hmm.
made plants, so there's all these excuses and reasoning behind it, but I knew for me
Yeah.
that it got out of control. I was doing it breakfast, lunch, dinner, every snack in between. It's crazy to admit,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that I had to quit.
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay. That wasn't something that I wanted to do. And so along with that though, I knew I had to quit drinking.
Okay. And
So
that's
they came
for
together.
for people who don't know, we live in Sonoma County. This is wine country.
Right.
And wine is everywhere. Talk about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, you go to a restaurant, they're wanting to offer you mimosas, which
Mm-hmm.
is like orange juice or cranberry juice with bubbles in it. And so that was one of the things that I've struggled with, just to be totally transparent since we've lived here. You've
Right.
said it. Oh, it's legal. It's alcohol's legal. Marijuana's legal here. And
Mm-hmm.
and so I have a conviction. I'll say it. I drink wine sometimes when we go out. I've been wine tasting. It's everywhere here.
Right.
And, God has been convicting me of that as well. Is it illegal? No. Is it wrong? Not necessarily. Am I abusing it? I wouldn't say I'm abusing it, but it doesn't feel like a good witness. I think maybe that's where you kind of mentioned you felt like,
Right.
but it's not necessarily being a good witness. And so I'm feeling very convicted on that as well. So you stop. Okay, tell us about that. Growing up in wine country, so you're getting
Right.
convictions about the marijuana use. Did the alcohol just kind of piggyback on that, or how did that work? Did you
It
have to
was sort of the other
slower?
way around. Yeah, it was
Okay.
kind of the other way around. Um, there for a long time, I had a group of friends, and when we drank,
Mm.
and we drank.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't miss that for sure.
Sure.
Um, but when I decided to quit smoking pot, I knew I had to quit drinking because when I drank, I want to smoke.
I see. Okay.
So
Okay.
for me, it was a twofer,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
once I stopped, I was realizing like maybe I am an alcoholic, because
Mm.
I didn't know when to say when.
Okay.
One drink led to many.
I see. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, that's something that makes me kind of sad, to realize like, wow, that I didn't know when to stop, because you have one and oh my God, I'm having so much fun. Okay, yeah, let's have
Sure.
another. And then
Mm-hmm.
then you're all, your endorphins and everything's going, okay, let's have another. Oh my God, this is so fun. And
Yeah.
I even God prunes the people out of your life that are not good for you. And he did that specifically. Painful, absolutely. But, again, kind of hearing him and understanding where he's trying to take me, it makes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense.
Oh my gosh, you say that, and I have the same exact experience in that, when we moved here, it's been very difficult for me to have to meet people and make friends. I was a remote worker, so I've been home a lot. I met some ladies, even went to church with some of these ladies, and was invited on a couple of occasions to come to these I don't know what they're called, but they're parties where it's just ladies and they get dressed up fun and wear hats and they serve bubbles. They serve champagne, and it's kind of like a bubble party or whatever. And there's all this great food and everything. And I went, and the whole time I was there, nobody was abusing anything. Everybody was just had a nice little glass of wine and was visiting and having a great time. I was so convicted being there. And I
Mm,
was just like, God, why can't I be here? Why can't I have friends? These ladies, they're good Christian ladies. They're getting to have a glass of champagne. Why can't I? And
mhm.
so I just kind of, the next party that came along, I went to that one, and the same feelings was like, this is not where I want you. Don't worry about them. For
Right.
you, this is not where you're supposed to be. And so I
Mhm.
stopped going, and eventually they stopped asking. And, I've been like, okay, God, I feel like you pruned me from hanging out with people that are doing these things, which I'm not saying that it was right or wrong or indifferent. I'm just saying for me, God was not allowing me to be in that environment. Um, and so I totally get that, but that is painful. That's
Mhm.
painful when God removes people, especially when you're new to an area and you don't have friends to start with. You start making friends and he takes those people away. So I understand kind of where you were coming from. So you've stopped drinking, you've stopped the marijuana use. How was that? Was that one of those things you hear about God delivering people automatically, and then you hear about some people who still struggle? So tell us how you were delivered from that.
Well, um, I, after this one, when I'm finished, I'm going to stop. And
Mm.
then I would go purchase some more. And then after this one, I'm going to stop. And literally, I'm so blessed that the Lord completely took it away. I said,
Okay.
that's it. He took it away. I've missed it, if that makes sense, because it was something 40 years.
Sure.
That's a long time.
Sure.
That's a long
Mm-hmm.
time. But what has happened since then, um, is, I before then I had struggled trying to find a Christian counselor. Insurance is challenging.
Mm.
And there's
Okay.
not a lot of Christian counselors in the area. So then once I finally got
Mm-hmm.
approval through my insurance, then I had to find an opening.
Yeah.
So I quit. So before I'd quit, let's see, 6 months before then is when I started trying to find the counselor, and also was invited to Regeneration, which is a 12-step Christian program. But it's not just about addiction, it's about all our struggles. So
Okay.
for me, you take a little survey and it tells you what you're struggling with. And I was like, yep, I struggle with
Mm.
depression, guilt, shame, and people pleasing.
Okay.
So
Check, check, check.
yeah, absolutely. So I was still smoking. I was invited to this program. I was trying to find a Christian counselor. I didn't join the program initially because, to be honest, I used the excuses I didn't want to pay the money.
Okay.
Money was not an issue, but that was the
Mm-hmm.
excuse I used,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? 6 months later, I quit. Not even
You
a month
quit the
later.
program or you quit?
No, sorry. I hadn't started the program.
Oh, gotcha.
I had
Okay.
not started. Yeah. 6 months later, then I quit smoking pot. 2 weeks later, the counseling appointment opened. And then about 3 weeks later, I got another invitation to join Regeneration. And so it was like God was
Giving you
literally
another
opening
chance.
doors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and it was amazing because I'd actually quit smoking before I started counseling and before I started the program. And originally I was going to the program to help me quit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, which yes, it's kept me, you know, it's helped a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
But going and working the program is really just helped clear my mind. I have,
Mm-hmm.
no, he's freed me from my depression, my guilt, my shame, my
Oh,
people
amen.
pleasing. I mean, he has set me free. And it's a feeling that, again, I'm going to cry.
It's okay.
I've never felt before.
Yeah.
I've never felt before. Um, my mom, in 2019, before all of this, was my darkest depression. We had 9 deaths in our family.
Mm,
I
my
lost my
goodness.
job. I quit my hobby that I loved. My mom got cancer, or was diagnosed with cancer. And 2019 was the fires, the second
Mm,
round.
second round. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2019, and we started a new church, going to a new church. I spent 2 years at the church physically. I was not there mentally.
Mm,
So from
mm-hmm.
2019 till 2026, I mean, I've grown tremendously. I'm a co-leader at the women's ministry. I teach preschool, Sunday school. I'm going to church every Sunday. I'm in the Word with my husband every morning. We do the year-long devotion or
Amen.
the year-long Bible app. God recognizes that.
Yes.
He sees the work that I am doing.
Yes.
And before I really started walking with the Lord and I would hear people say, give it to God. I'm like, ugh, I'd roll my eyes, literally.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't tried that. I mean, I
Right.
called out to God, I don't know how many times, take it away, take it away. But he knew I wasn't ready to do the work.
Mm, that's so
It
good.
wasn't like he was just going to snap his fingers and it's all gone. But
Yeah.
when I finally set it down and he opened all these doors, and life has been so different. I'm light. I walk
Yeah.
around, and you had mentioned,
You
that
do.
they're not. Oh, that's really
Yes.
special.
Yes.
Yeah.
You, like I said, we don't go to that church any longer. God moved us. Um, but you were the first person that and I don't know if you were on like the hospitality team or the welcome team or what, but you were the first person that welcomed me. And so yeah, you glow and it shows. And I am so incredibly proud of you. I'm so proud that you took the step. I'm so proud that you are sharing your testimony because I know, I mean, you're speaking to my heart today with some of the things that I still struggle with, and just your vulnerability and your willing to share some of the darkest moments of your life. I know that there's women out there who are listening today and they're
Mm-hmm.
saying, if she can do it, I can do it. And look what God has done. Look how God has just restored you completely. And your life looks nothing like it did before.
No. And you had mentioned if I could do it, they can do it, or if
Mm. Yeah,
either way.
something like that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I if you would have asked me several years back if I'd see myself where I'm at today,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was so ingrained in me. And it was just it was a habit. It was not even a hobby. You can call it
Yeah.
a hobby, but it was a habit,
Yeah.
that I knew. And then I would go, oh, but I didn't smoke before I went to church,
I should
right?
get credit for that,
Right? Yeah.
right?
Crazy, crazy.
Yeah,
But the second I came home, take off the shoes, and that was
yeah,
the first thing I did. So what is the difference?
yeah,
You know? But when you're so consumed, and I believe a lot of it is trying to numb the pain and
yeah,
silence the voices in your head, God will take those away. He
yeah.
will. I mean, I can't believe it, but he absolutely will. And he did.
I love that. You said something, if we can just go back for just a second, because I
Hmm.
think it's really important. You were in church and you were struggling. I think there's so many women who are suffering in silence, whether they're battling an addiction or they're battling depression, whatever the case may be, they go to church and nobody knows what they are going through. That really hurts my heart because I mean, I've been there. I said it in my books. I battled burnout and depression and anxiety and all the things that you've mentioned for many, many years. But yeah, I was on the praise and worship team, raising my hands, leading people in worship, and nobody knew, to include my husband, even knew that I was suffering. And so I'd like to get your thoughts on, how do we stop that cycle? How do women learn to get the help, to reach out to someone, stop hiding, and start bringing it up to somebody in the hospitality team or somebody in the women's group? How do we do that?
When I first met you, I was still struggling and you had no
I
idea.
had no idea. I was struggling in my own way too, and you didn't know. I mean, that's what I'm
Right, right.
saying. We can't do
Um,
this.
no, and I think the part of the first step is to admit to ourselves
Hmm.
that I am struggling.
Yeah,
Um, and then pick someone, or not pick, but find someone that you feel comfortable with,
yeah,
and just say, hey, can we talk? I am struggling with some things and I really need to talk to someone about it. If they are pastoral, or like you said, on the worship, not worship team, the prayer team,
hmm,
or yeah, that would be great. But to kind of open the door, find someone you're comfortable with and
yeah,
be honest with yourself and them.
yes,
That's the other thing. A lot of people don't want to be vulnerable.
hmm,
Um,
hmm,
I know a lot of people are struggling, as I did, and they're just wearing a mask. And how do
yeah.
you come up to them and go, "Hey, are you wearing a mask?"
Yeah.
Because not everyone, when you go to church on Sunday and everyone's smiling and everybody's happy. I
Hmm.
honestly had a hard time with that. I didn't
Hmm.
always wear a mask. There were times when people knew
Hmm.
that something wasn't right, but I also think they didn't know how to help me.
Yeah, yeah,
It
I
was
agree.
that lean on God, give it to God.
Yes. Yes, and we've heard that so
Right,
often, cast your care, God will take
right,
care of it, and we know He can. We know that, and but
right,
most times God doesn't just automatically snap His fingers and deliver us from whatever we're dealing with. He
right.
can, but I think, like what you just said, until we are willing and able to do our part, it's a partnership.
Yes,
And that was kind of like with me when I had my breakdown, and I had to surrender. I mean, I had to surrender. And for somebody who deals with perfectionism and control and all of that stuff, I mean, that was so hard for me to be able to do that. But once I did, that's
mhm,
when he started working with me on, uncovering the why behind the depression and all of those things, and helping
right.
me to heal that way. So,
Mhm.
well, I did not know that. When you and I were talking, when you reached out to me after the Salted episode aired, I was like, I did not know this. And there was a part of me that felt really bad, that why didn't I know this? I should have known this. You and I were just getting to know each other. And so, there probably wasn't a lot of trust built up yet. But how can we, as women who've been restored from whatever we've been dealing with, how do we then start to recognize when others might be suffering in silence? What are some things that we might be able to do?
Well, it really does come down to relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If you just sort of have a superficial relationship with someone,
Mm-hmm.
hi on Sunday, give a hug, glad to see you, and you don't really know them or their story,
Mm.
there's really no way that you can help.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I'll be honest, a lot of people at my church still don't know this testimony.
Yeah. What do you think when it airs? What do you think?
Well, I'm excited because to think that I can help somebody else
Mm.
by what I went through.
Mm.
Because I'd even told my husband, I'm like, who am I? What is my story? Okay, so I smoke pot, big deal. It's not, how is that a testimony?
Mm.
But then again, when I sit and think about where I was,
Mm.
how I fought to get where I am,
Right.
we have to be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, this program that I'm in, regeneration, has really helped because it's a weekly program. We get together weekly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a workbook, which I am deathly afraid of workbooks. I cried when
Oh
step
no.
4 was 2 workbooks, but I'm actually doing the work, and it's God walking you through daily, asking you questions about how you're feeling. What do you
Mm.
think? I didn't know how I felt or what I thought because I wasn't allowed to do that,
Yeah.
even as a child. So now at 57 years old, and someone goes, "What do you think about that?" And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
you
Yeah.
know? And
You having to
so
rewire everything.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, programs of whatever sort you're going to find hopefully is something that, and those are scary.
Yeah.
Um, when I first signed up, I thought, oh, it's a 12 step. So it's what, 12, 14 weeks. And they're like, oh no, this is 10 months.
Oh, wow. That's a commitment.
I was like, I'm never going to make it.
Oh, it's a lot.
And I'm getting through,
Yeah.
and I'm like, want to go through it again because I've learned so much about myself, and my relationship with Christ has grown
Mm.
so much
Yeah. I
that,
love it.
sometimes if you watch a movie again, you're like, oh, I missed that the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of how I feel like I've gone through it, but I want to do it again because I know I'm going to learn more,
Yes. Oh, I
you know.
love that. I love that so much. Oh my gosh, this has been such a precious conversation. Thank you so much for reaching out to me, for sharing your story, for being vulnerable. I would love it if, as we're coming to a close, what do you want to say to that woman who's listening? Maybe she is listening with a beer in her hand right now.
Right.
Maybe she's smoking a joint. What do you want to say to her right now? What's on your heart?
You are important. You matter to yourself. Forget everybody else. You matter to yourself. You need to show up for yourself. Don't give up on yourself. It literally takes one step at a time. Um, but I know that my relationship with Christ is really, really what has gotten me through. He has been there with me 100%. I've tried it on my own, and it really wasn't possible. If it wasn't for God in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. And for me to say that is huge because I used to, again, I'd roll my eyes at those people talking about Jesus all the time, and now here I am. I'm like, I can't talk about him enough,
Yes. Amen. Amen.
but yeah, don't give up. If you feel convicted or you think, well, maybe I should, you should. You should live a healthy lifestyle because that's really what God wants for you. And again, you are a temple. You are God's creation, and He did not create you to be a drunkard, to be depressed, to be anxious all the time. That's not what He wants for you. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Amen. Oh, that makes beautiful sense. Thank you so much. Trina, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. I know that it is going to help thousands, if not more, women who are battling any type of struggle. So thank you so
I
much for
hope
being
so.
here.
I hope so, really. And it's not about me, it's about God, for sure. He
Amen.
gets the glory.
Amen. All right, folks, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Juggling Life Finding Balance podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button, share this with a friend. And then also, too, don't forget to come over to my website, viviancummins.com, where you're going to find more great information, books, devotionals, and free goodies. So until next time, be blessed and stay balanced.